Hey guys, we are here for take 2 of this week's episode of Vacationing in Real Estate. We had some technical difficulties and lost Heather for a minute. So we're excited to be on episode number 40. We are going to talk about Heather just got back from vacation, and we're super excited to hear about that. And then we're going to also take a little peek behind the curtains of vacationing when you're in the real estate industry and how to prepare and how it looks coming back. And then I will be on a vacation next week. So I guess it's vacation season for us. Summer's over, right?
Yeah.
And so tell us about your trip.
Yeah. So trip was really good. We basically did a Scandinavian tour. So we landed in Copenhagen, Denmark, spent a few days there kind of doing day trips. And then we drove west to the other coast of Denmark. And then we hopped on an overnight ferry, went up to Bergen, Norway, which is basically the core area that a lot of tourists go for, like fjords and touring the fjords. And then we rented a car and drove through the national parks and the mountains and ended up in Oslo on the east coast of Norway. And then trained to Stockholm, Sweden, spent a day there, and then flew down to Amsterdam, where we had an overnight layover and hung out in Amsterdam for an evening, and then flew home. But it was super interesting because a lot of Scandinavia lives very similarly to Americans, which I found really weird, except they are all in rocking good shape. I think Denmark has some of the healthiest and fittest people I have ever seen in my life, like just as a whole. And one of the reasons for that is anywhere that has water, they literally have clubs, and like you're considered a cool person if you are somebody who goes and dips into the rivers or the lakes or the fjords first thing in the morning. And you will see just thousands of people on the waterfront jumping into the water. Doesn't matter what time of year it is, doesn't matter if it's an 80-degree heat wave or a 0-degree day, everybody's jumping in the water. And not only that, but bikes outnumbered cars by tenfold. I mean, everybody bikes in Copenhagen. It was insane. But in Norway, it was a little less of that, but still very active people. And then Stockholm was a little bit more, I don't know how to describe it aside from stereotypical European. Like in Norway and Copenhagen, everybody was super casual. And in Stockholm, Sweden, everybody was like more dressed up, cared more about their looks or their fashion or whatever, like a stereotypical European country typically is. But yeah, it was really cool. But I gotta tell you, I mentioned this briefly to Cassie in the beginning before we hopped on, is Norway and the fjords they photograph gorgeously. Like it is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful area. But it is so much like Washington that I found myself almost disappointed because I felt like we just spent so much money to travel home for 2 weeks, because it's the way that the mountains lead to their water isn't quite how it is in Washington, but the views are still similar. Like if you have a really big lake in the middle of the mountains, like if anybody's gone to Lake Wenatchee or Diablo Lake, or there's another big one in the North Cascades, it is literally just sheer cliffs on both sides with beautiful, beautiful water in the middle. And that's what all the fjords feel like. The biggest difference is that they are everywhere. It's not just going to the lakes. It is literally all over Norway, especially on the west coast of Norway. And then when you look in the fjords and the mountains on a clear day, you see a lot of ridges and stuff in the mountains that have been carved out by water because they're usually very wet climate. And then, so our first couple of days in Norway were beautiful, 75-degree days, very atypical for them. And then our last couple of days in Norway were heavy rain. So we actually got to see the waterfalls just literally thousands upon thousands of waterfalls within one view down the fjords. And that part was just breathtakingly gorgeous because you just see so many waterfalls going down the mountains, landing into the water below. And that was incredibly special. But with that said, if you can't afford or don't want to travel all the way over to Scandinavia to see the fjords, just come to Washington. I'm happy to show you around. We can see similar sites, not quite on the same scale, but still very similar.
Because I'm going to save a lot of money going to Washington.
Yeah, it was still very cool. I still recommend it, but it was just, it was interesting. Like, I've been to a couple of European countries at this point, and they all have their own vibe. Like, it's very British, or it's very German, or it's very Italian. Like, they all have a very specific vibe unique to that country. And I just feel like Scandinavia felt European, but still very American way of living too. Anyways, it was just interesting. But overall, it was a lot of fun. And to that note, God, preparing and then being there and coming back is just always a whirlwind because it changes a little bit depending on kind of what our pipeline looks like. Like, do we expect to have a lot of clients coming up? Do we expect it to be a slow season? Like, right now is a more slower season for real estate than, say, June or July, which is why, like, Cassie's taken a vacation and I took a vacation because it's typically our slow season. But with that said, my office always has a competition every year where we basically get points for reaching out to our sphere, holding events, like basically just doing things to support our business. So what typically happens getting ready on vacation is I go, okay, who are all of my clients in my pipeline? How can I set them up? Are people going to be looking at houses? Let me talk to another agent friend of mine or colleague of mine and say, hey, can you show them houses while I'm gone? If you have internet connection, that's going to be one way of prepping versus not having internet connection. Like, how available are you going to be, right? Because if somebody decides to write an offer, are you going to have time to do it? Or do you have to hire it out to, whoever's going to help you show your clients around or prepping for the listing or whatever. But for me, it was not just that this time, but it was also trying to prep for literally like a month and a half, just trying to prep everything I need to get ready for the competition that my office is holding, which includes like rebuilding my buyer booklets, my seller booklets, setting up, like redesigning how I wanted my social media to look. Like, there's a lot that kind of went into it all simultaneously. So I literally prepped for this trip for like a month and a half. But lucky for me, this trip, I did not have much going on during it. I had to answer a couple of emails just to make sure everybody was on the same page, but nobody was ready to jump on anything yet from a buyer or a seller side. So I was really lucky in that standpoint. But also in the past, I've literally had a client interview at 4 a.m. in Scotland because I got a referral and they were in a hurry. So I was like, yes, I will hop on a call in 6 hours to have an interview, of course. Which thankfully I got the business because of that. But that's also not the goal for most of us real estate agents. Like, anybody who's self-employed knows, like, yeah, you're on vacation. You separate as much as you can. But if you're a party of one, then you gotta sacrifice some stuff sometimes. Yeah.
I think,
and then being back, it's like you have to jump on that sometimes to like follow up with people and make sure everybody's doing okay. So yeah,
catch up with everything. I'm sure that you weren't like necessarily tending to every single email that wasn't time sensitive. So you get back and then you've got an email inbox full, and voicemail.
Oh yeah,
so
that was my job this morning. I had like 200 emails that I was going through that I was like, I know none of these are urgent, but let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. Let me sure people are answered. Like, yeah, it's time consuming before and after. catching up.
Yeah.
But how about you?
I'm sure that most people know, but if you're not aware, real estate is almost always commission only, right? So like if we don't work, we don't get paid. So it can make vacationing a little challenging because we, you take some time off and you come back and then, you may have to kind of make up for that income wise. So I've been the same as you, Heather. I've been literally prepping for over 2 months to go on vacation and getting all my people lined up for anyone that may have a need when I'm gone. And I've been working extra hard to make sure everybody is followed up and taken care of. And then, I'll be gone next week. So I actually have not legit unplugged, taken a vacation in years. So this will be interesting.
Yeah.
And
I'm so excited for you.
Yeah,
it's impressive.
Me too. So I'm like super excited, but also like kind of this about what it's going to look like when I get back. But it's just as far as like emails, that kind of building up and things like that. If they're not time sensitive, I will still, of course, make sure that everybody's taken care of while I'm away. But it will be doing the minimal for sure. So.
Yeah, and you have an extra complication too, because myself, I hang my real estate license with a brokerage. So I just only have to worry about me. You own your own brokerage. So you have like 10 times the responsibilities to prep and recover after a trip than I do, because you're not only taking care of your clients, you're taking care of your agents as well. So I applaud you for all of that prep that you have to do. And I know it's worth it, because like if I lived in Mississippi, I'd work with you in a second. But like you obviously take care of your people. What some of the stuff you have to do to like prep, like being gone as the head broker in your office or agent in your office. I don't remember what it's called in Mississippi, but
broker. So I had to make sure to set up where when an agent had a question, they have someone to go to. So I had to line up kind of the leadership aspect of it. And then I have property management too. So I had to make sure that all of my notes and files and work orders and everything were up to date. And then I have an assistant that she's up to date on everything. And then any inquiries that come in will be forwarded to the office or forwarded to my assistant property manager. So I'm very hopeful that that it will go smoothly. And we'll be back in a couple weeks, and 2 weeks actually, and we will be able to let you guys know how that went, and if I did a good job preparing.
I'm sure you did. Like are you fully unplugging, or is it just like 99% unplugging and like answering emergencies as they pop up?
Yeah, it's 99%. Basically it's like I've got to it has to filter up quite a ways before it'll get done. But if there's a really urgent situation that needs my attention, I will be available. It's just I won't be readily available. So like I won't have my phone like on or ringer on like 24/7. Like I typically
that makes sense.
And it is important because in our industry, for those who maybe don't know a real estate agent or or close with one, I think we all know a real estate agent, but burnout is like super high in our industry because we are basically on call 24/7 and attached to our phones and have very time sensitive things that happen on a frequent basis. Even with like an offer like coming in, and you're on a really strict timeline to make sure that that's taken care of. So with stuff like that, it's like it is hard, and you have to be very, very intentional to be able to disconnect. But it is also super important because nobody can be on like 24/7, 365 for years at a time, and then and be able to serve their clients and their families and all that to the highest level in themselves. So I'm definitely excited, and I look forward to seeing you guys back in 2 weeks.
Yay. Very excited for the 2 weeks. And I hope you have an amazing trip. You deserve it for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, I'll see you guys on the other side.